What happens when a man who has everything discovers he knows nothing? When success blinds you to the truth hiding in plain sight. Today's story will shake you to your core. This is about Marcus Chen, a billionaire CEO who thought he'd escaped his past, only to find it waiting for him in the shadows of his childhood home. Marcus Chen hadn't set foot in the Chen family estate in 12 years. Not since the day he'd stormed out, diploma in hand, declaring he'd never need his family's old-fashioned values again. Now, at 42, he was worth $3 billion. His tech company had revolutionized artificial intelligence, and his face graced the covers of Forbes and Time. The world saw him as a visionary, a self-made genius who'd built an empire from nothing. But nothing wasn't quite accurate, was it? The call came on a Tuesday. His assistant Patricia had hesitated before interrupting his meeting. "Mr. Chen, it's your mother. She says it's urgent." Marcus had almost declined. Almost. Something in Patricia's voice made him take the phone. "Marcus." His mother's voice trembled, years of pride cracking like old porcelain. "Your father, he's had a stroke. The doctors say we need to prepare." A pause, heavy with unspoken words. "Come home, my son, before it's too late." 24 hours later, Marcus's Tesla pulled through the iron gates of the estate. The mansion loomed before him, a monument to old money and older secrets. Built in 1887 by his great-great-grandfather, it sprawled across 15 acres of manicured gardens. Marcus had spent his childhood running through these halls, desperate to escape to something bigger. Now, returning felt like defeat. His mother met him at the door, aged beyond her 68 years. "Marcus," she whispered, embracing him. He stood rigid, uncomfortable with the affection. "He's resting. The nurse is with him." She studied his face. "You look tired." "I run a Fortune 500 company, Mother. Tired is my natural state." The arrogance dripped from every word, a defense mechanism he'd perfected over decades. That first night, Marcus wandered the mansion, jet-lagged and restless. The place felt like a museum, preserved exactly as he remembered. His childhood bedroom remained untouched, astronomy posters still on the walls, debate team trophies gathering dust. It was unsettling, this shrine to a boy who no longer existed. At 2 a.m., he found himself in the library. Floor-to-ceiling mahogany shelves housed thousands of books, many centuries old. This had been his father's sanctuary. Marcus ran his fingers along the spines, memories flooding back unbidden. His father teaching him chess on rainy afternoons. The disappointed silence when Marcus announced he was studying computer science, not law. The final argument about honoring the family legacy. "Stubborn old man," Marcus muttered. "Your legacy is a dusty house and outdated values." A book caught his eye, slightly misaligned, protruding a quarter-inch from the shelf. His father was meticulous about order. This was wrong. Marcus pulled it out. A History of Industrial Shanghai, 1920 to 1950. He'd never noticed it before. As he opened it, a small key tumbled out, along with a yellowed envelope addressed in his father's precise handwriting. "For Marcus, when you're ready to understand." Marcus's hands trembled as he tore open the envelope. Inside, a single sentence in Chinese. "The truth hides where you've always avoided looking." Where had he avoided? Everywhere in this house held painful memories. But one place stood out, the East Wing, permanently locked since his grandfather's death when Marcus was 10. Grandfather's private chambers, his father had said. Not for children. Marcus had tried the door exactly once before his father's sharp rebuke taught him never to try again. The key felt heavy in his palm. At 3 a.m., the mansion creaked with settling wood and whispered secrets. Marcus climbed the curved staircase to the East Wing, each step echoing in the silence. The door loomed before him, dark walnut with brass fixtures tarnished by time. The key slid in perfectly. The lock clicked. Marcus pushed the door open. Dust motes danced in the moonlight streaming through tall windows. The room was an office, no, an operations center. Maps covered the walls, some of China, others of routes across the Pacific. A massive desk dominated the center, its surface surprisingly clean, as if someone maintained this space despite its decades of closure. File cabinets lined one wall, and Marcus noticed they weren't locked. His heart pounding, he opened the first drawer. Manila folders, meticulously labeled with dates: 1942, 1943, 1944. He pulled one out randomly, 1943. Inside, documents in English and Chinese, photographs of ships, and lists of names. His eyes widened as he read: Underground Railroad Manifest, Shanghai to San Francisco, 217 refugees. No, Marcus breathed. That's impossible. For hours, Marcus read. Each folder revealed another piece of a story he'd never known. His grandfather Chen hadn't been just a wealthy merchant, as family lore claimed. He'd been a hero, part of a secret network that smuggled thousands of Jews out of Shanghai during World War II, then later helped Chinese intellectuals escape communist persecution during the revolution. The Chen family fortune hadn't come from wise investments alone. It had been built on sacrifice. His grandfather had risked everything, using his legitimate shipping business as cover for the Underground Railroad. The estate itself had been a way station, hiding refugees in secret passages before securing their passage to America. Marcus found photographs, his grandfather with strangers, families clutching suitcases, children with haunted eyes. One photo showed a young couple, the woman holding a baby. On the back, his grandfather's handwriting: The Goldsteins. Rebecca is pregnant. Must ensure their safe passage. 3,000 yuan for bribes, worth every cent. But the operation had come at a cost. Another folder, marked 1952, contained a single document, a death warrant issued by the Communist Party for Chen Wei, accused of counter-revolutionary activities and aiding enemies of the people. His grandfather had fled to Taiwan, then eventually to San Francisco, where he'd used his remaining resources to rebuild. The man had died when Marcus was 10, living modestly in a small house, his fortune spent saving others. Marcus's chest tightened. The family legacy he'd scorned wasn't about maintaining appearances or preserving wealth. It was about courage, sacrifice, and using privilege to protect the powerless. A sound made him spin around. His mother stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. You found it. Why didn't anyone tell me? Marcus's voice cracked with emotion he'd suppressed for years. His mother entered slowly, her silk robe rustling. Your father wanted to. Every year, he said, Marcus isn't ready yet. You were so angry, so determined to prove you needed no one. How could we tell you that everything you'd built stood on a foundation of sacrifice you'd rejected? She sat in her father-in-law's chair, looking small and frail. The estate, Marcus. It's not a museum of old values. It's a memorial. Every room has a story. The library shelves hide passages where refugees slept. The wine cellar's false wall once concealed a printing press for forged documents. Your bedroom was where the Goldstein's daughter recovered from typhoid fever before their ship departed. Marcus sank to the floor, folders scattering around him. His entire worldview was crumbling. I called him stubborn. Said his legacy was worthless. He forgave you long ago, my son. He hoped you'd find success on your own terms, then choose to understand on your own terms. His mother's voice softened. He's awake. The nurse says it's time. He wants to see you. In his father's bedroom, Marcus knelt beside the hospital bed. The patriarch's eyes opened, still sharp despite the stroke's ravages. You found the room, he whispered. I'm sorry, father. I was blind. Arrogant. His father's trembling hand grasped Marcus's. You built an empire. Now, build a legacy. Money is easy. Meaning is hard. He struggled for breath. Make it mean something. 3 days later, Marcus stood before his company's board of directors. I'm announcing the Chen Foundation, he said, his voice steady. $1 billion to start, dedicated to refugee resettlement and protecting vulnerable populations worldwide. Because I learned something recently. Success without purpose is just elaborate emptiness. The board erupted in questions, but Marcus's mind was elsewhere, in a dusty room filled with ghosts of heroes he'd never known. He'd found his family's secret, And in doing so, he'd found himself. Sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in boardrooms or laboratories, but in the shadows of our own history. Chen thought he'd left his past behind, only to discover it was the key to his future. What secrets might your own family hold? What legacies are we too blind to see?